Hello to all my story lovers. Welcome back in Storytime channel. I'm Pallavi reading interesting stories for you. Today's story name is The Promise of a Promise. This is the story of Raja Harishchandra and Queen Taramati. So let's go through it. King Harishchandra of Ayodhya was a popular and impartial king. He was blessed with a pious wife named Taramati, and together they had a son named Rohitashva. King Harishchandra was very dharmic and was believed to let nothing deter him from walking the path of dharma. One day, a discussion sparked among the gods and the sages about which king was the most honest and faithful to his dharma. Vasishtha, the guru of the Suryavanshis, remarked, "No one can beat Harishchandra in this regard." The statement upset the gods as well as sage Vishwamitra, who questioned how a mortal could be better than the gods. Just then Narada arrived at the scene. He also agreed with Vishwamitra, encouraged Vishwamitra, said with confidence, "I'll prove you wrong, Vasishtha." "Of course, you can try," Vasishtha replied. "You can taste Harishchandra for as long as you like. I know that he will pass all your tests with flying colors. But in the rare chance that he doesn't, I promise to give up my position as a teacher and live the life of common man for the rest of my time." Narada turned to Vishwamitra. "But what happens if Harishchandra proves that he is the best there is? There must be some consequences for you too. Then I'll give Harishchandra half of my yogic powers and the divine goodwill that I have earned. I will ensure that he becomes renowned and lives for a long time in the world as well as in the minds of future generations," said an enraged Vishwamitra. Narada nodded, and the two sages agreed that Harishchandra be tested. Vishwamitra set about formulating his strategy. Very soon, some villagers approached Harishchandra for help. "There is a wild boar in our village that is destroying our crops and posing a danger to our families. Please help us." So the king gathered some of his soldiers and the party set out to hunt the boar, who was Vishwamitra's creation. Harishchandra, who was oblivious of the test, followed the footprints of the boar and galloped deep into the forest, far ahead of his troop, who soon lost sight of him. He wandered the forest for a long time, but it seemed that the boar had vanished into thin air. Tired from the chase, Harishchandra walked until he spotted a beautiful ashram. This ashram too was one of the Vishwamitra's creations. Two beautiful women step out and welcome the king with garlands and drinks and entertain him. Please Harishchandra relax for some time and revel in the attention he was receiving. Then he rose to depart, thanked his beautiful host, and promised to send them gifts from the royal treasury through his messengers. The woman, however, refused his gifts. "King, we do not want any gift from you. We only want to marry you," they declare. Harishchandra was unprepared for this. "I can't marry you, young maidens. I already have a wife and a child," Such an action constitutes adharma, he said. Just then Vishwamitra entered the scene. King, he thundered, this is my ashram and you have come here without taking my permission. Now you are insulting my daughters by refusing their wishes. The only way to right your wrong is to accede to their request and marry them. The king politely refused again. When Vishwamitra persisted, at last Harishchandra said, Sage, I would rather part with my kingdom than marry your daughters. I cannot go against Dharma. Vishwamitra pounced on the king's word and said, in that case, give your kingdom to me. Bring me water and let's perform the ceremony of the abdication of your throne. Without a moment's hesitation, Harishchandra gave away his kingdom to the sage. After the abdication, Vishwamitra said, charity is incomplete without dakshina. Tell me, dear sage, what would you like as dakshina? Harishchandra asked. I want a really tall person to stand on an elephant and throw a coin to the ground. Then I want a heap of gold as tall as the point from where a person was standing on the elephant. Sure, I'll give this to you as soon as I reach the palace, said Harishchandra. But your kingdom is already mine, so your treasury is no longer yours. You cannot take anything from it, the sage remarked. I'll take it from my personal share of wealth to give to you, said Harishchandra. When a kingdom is given away, your personal wealth is included in it, the sage rebutted. Let me think about this, sage. I'll give the money to you, but please allow me to now to go back the kingdom and inform my family. I will come with you, Harishchandra, so you can formally hand over the kingdom to me. Harishchandra nodded. When Harishchandra reached Ayodhya, he called his wife and his son and apprised them of the latest developments. They were no longer queen and prince and could no longer live in the palace. Vishwamitra was expecting Taramati to be livid about her husband's action and try to persuade the king to regain his kingdom somehow. However, nothing of the sort happened. Taramati did not question her husband. Instead, she removed her as well as her son's royal jewelry and stood up. I agree with you, dear husband. A word of honor must be kept, come what may. Harishchandra turned to Vishwamitra and said, O sage, I have heard that Kashi is prosperous and rich city. So I will go there with my family and come back with your money once I have it. Kashi is quite far, Harishchandra, and you might take years to return, or you might not come back at all. But the gold has been promised, so I will send my disciple Nakshatra with you. Give the money to him by the end of the month. For now, I will begin my rule here. So Harishchandra, Taramati, and Rohitshwa, along with Nakshatraka, began their journey to Kashi. The king's subjects lined up along the road and sobbed at the state of their king. They were furious at Vishwamitra, but the sage didn't heed them. Nakshatraka was as cunning as his teacher was and troubled the family frequently, demanding food, water, and frequent rest stops. Taramati had never traveled such a long distance by foot and soon felt weary and tired. Young Rohitashwa was also finding it hard to continue the journey without enough food and water. But neither mother nor son complained. Harishchandra was distress at the hardship that had befallen his family. But he was determined to keep his word to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra created illusionary thieves and beasts and hurricanes, tornadoes, and flash floods in an effort to propel Taramati to plead with her husband and stop him from proceeding with his plan. But Taramati remained static through the journey and chanted Kashi Vishwanath's name, another name for Lord Shiva, until the illusions reached their logical end. After a long and tumultuous journey, the four finally reached Kashi. It was the last day of the month. Nakshatraka began asking for the money. Give it quickly or accept defeat. He pestered Harishchandra. With no respite in sight and no end to the pressure, the only way Harishchandra could think of to repay his debt was to sell himself and his family. It was the hardest decision he had made, and he spent a long time deliberating over it. Finally, he made a public announcement. My wife, my child, and I are up for sale. Whoever buys us must give us the gold that we want. I want a tall person to stand on the elephant and throw a coin to the ground. Then I want a heap of gold as tall as the tallest point from where the person was standing on the elephant. An old man approached them. My wife is ill and I need a lady servant to cook and clean the house. For your wife, I will pay part of the money that you need. Taramati began sobbing. I really don't want a crying servant. I need someone who will work sincerely, said the old man, seeming doubtful at Taramati's tears. No, no, said Taramati, and wiped her tears away. I will gladly come to work for you, but please allow me to bring my son too. That's going to be a problem. Then I will have to spend to feed your child too, replied the old man. Sir, it is difficult for me to part with my child, begged Taramati. I assure you that he will help with the domestic chores around the house and will earn his meals. Harishchandra became overwhelmed at this exchange, as the old man nodded and brought both his wife and his son. Nakshatraka, who was standing a short distance away, said to the old man, keep the gold with you. My teacher Vishwamitra will come and collect it one day. Taramati cast one last affectionate look at her husband, said, without saying a word, turned around, laid an arm around her son, and followed the old man to his home. Left alone, Harishchandra announced again, I am ready to be a lifelong slave to anyone who agrees to give me the remainder of the money that I need. A stout and hefty man stepped out of the crowd and stood in front of him. I am Veera Babu, and I am the owner and the caretaker of Manikarnika Ghat, the burning ground of the holy city. I need a servant to help me with my duties on the ground. I will buy your lifelong services. Veera Babu pulled out the money and bought Harishchandra. Nakshatraka felt a twinge of sadness to see a good king becoming a slave to the owner of a burning ground. But he had to fulfill his duty to Vishwamitra. Nakshatraka said to Veera Babu, keep the gold with you. My teacher said Vishwamitra will come and collect it one day. Saying thus, Nakshatraka departed. Veera Babu turned to Harishchandra. As I said, I own Manikarnika Ghat. Legend has it that when Sati, the first wife of Lord Shiva, died in her father's yagya and Shiva picked up her body and danced the Tandava Nritya in grief and anger. Her earrings fell and landed in this area, and so it was named Manikarnika. People prefer to breathe their last at Kashi because of the belief that if their ashes are immersed in the river Ganga, they will go to heaven. Come now, your duties are mainly at the ground. I charge a fixed fee for the cremation rites, a few gold coins for me, and one gold coin and loincloth for you. Never perform cremation rites free of charge. You must be available day and night, as death has no time and a dead body can arrive at any time. You must also ensure that no animal enters the ground or discretes it. These are standing instructions. Harishchandra nodded and understood that he would have to stay at Manikarnika Ghat itself. Soon, Veera Babu also departed, and Harishchandra was left alone. As Harishchandra stared at the river Ganga flowing below the ghat, he thought of his kingdom on the banks of the river Sarayu and his capital city of Ayodhya. How fortunes had changed and had turned him from a love king to a pauper. He felt disheartened thinking of his wife and son and wondered what they were doing at that moment. He felt responsible for their hardship. They were suffering for the sole reason that they were his family. Yet, even though his heart was heavy, his conscience was clear because he had kept his promise. Thus, Harishchandra began his new life. Meanwhile, Taramati had already begun working in the old man's house. She toiled from morning to evening. Despite her efforts, the old couple always found fault with her work. Rohit also worked very hard to complete his course, which lasted all day. He had been a prince whose sole focus had been studying and learning the art of warfare, while he was waited on hand and foot. But now he was a woodcutter and a cleaner. He wasn't given enough food, and Taramati was worried that her son's weakening body would eventually give way. Still, mother and son dealt with their situation as best as they could. One day there was a Shraddha in the old man's home, and he told Rohit to go collect firewood. The young boy took the axe and went to the forest nearby. A snake that was created by Vishwamitra bit him as he chopped wood, and Rohit died instantly. A few people who witnessed the incident came running to Taramati with the news. A horrified Taramati begged the old man, "Please, sir, allow me to go and see my child." The old man replied, "It is the Shraddha today, and there is a lot of to be done. I don't have time for this. Do whatever you want, but come back before the Shraddha starts." Taramati hurriedly made her way to the forest, fearful and sobbing. When she saw the body of her dead child, she prayed to Kashi Vishwanath, "O Lord, haven't you given us enough tests and tasks to deal with? And now you have taken my child away from me. How can you let him die this way?" Taramati cried and cried until her tears ran dry. Then she remembered that she had promised the old man she would return quickly. So she carried Rohit's dead body to the Manikarnika Ghat. The cremation ground was deserted save a man working there. He had his back towards her. Taramati called out him, "Sir, will you allow me to burn my child's body here?" "Do you have the money for it?" the man asked, without turning to look at her. No, sir, I am servant in rich man's house and I don't have any money with me. Then the cremation cannot happen here, he responded. Taramati began crying. Oh Rohichwa, look at what fate has done to you. You were born a prince, but you have died a pauper, and I don't even have enough for your last rites. I don't know what to do. On hearing Taramati's word, Harishchandra realized it was his wife. He still himself and still keeping his back to her said, "You have a Mangal Sutra around your neck. You can sell that and bring the money." Taramati looked up surprised. "How did you see my Mangal Sutra? It is a magical necklace and only two people in the world can see it. Lord Vishwanath of Kashi and my husband. So who are you?" Harishchandra turned around and Taramati saw that he was none other than her husband. Harishchandra looked at Taramati and broke down. He sobbed bitterly. Then he composed himself and said, "Our son is gone, but you have to bring the money for this last rites. I can forego my fee, but I can't do so for my master's share. Please, Taramati, bring the money from your master. The old man doesn't even give us enough food. Do you really think that he will give me money for our son's cremation? Have mercy, dear husband. Rohit Shava is your son too. We can't keep dead bodies in this state for too long. Please, I beg you, allow him some dignity and let him rest here." Harishchandra took his head with sadness. Taramati knew that he would not change his mind, so she resigned herself to the will of the Lord and said, "I'll see what I can do. I will leave his body here for now and come back later." As she made her way back to the old man's home, she saw a young boy of the same age as her son lying dead on the ground. In her sorrow and confusion, she mistook the boy to be her son. She sat down, placed the body of the boy on her lap, and asked, "Oh Rachava, are you alive again?" The body really belonged to the Prince of Kashi, with yet another of Vishwamitra's tricks. The Prince of Kashi had been kidnapped and killed by thieves. The royal guards had been searching for the prince and came across Taramati sitting with the prince's lifeless body. Assuming that she was the prince's murderer, they arrested her and dragged her to the king. "Your Majesty, here is the demon woman who has killed the prince." The king was grief stricken, but when the queen saw her son's dead body, she fainted with shock. Taramati was still too distressed and not in the right state of mind. She blabbered, "My son has been beaten by a snake, and my husband won't allow me to perform his last rites without paying the money for the cremation." The king was too upset to be objective. Without thinking further, he announced, "Behead this woman, take her to the Manikarnika Ghat and execute her there." The soldiers took Taramati to Manikarnika Ghat and informed Harishchandra that he had to execute this criminal. Harishchandra looked at Taramati and his face turned as white as sheet. He was not prepared for this. He knew that Taramati had not slain the prince, but he had been ordered to do so, and it was his duty to obey the king. With eyes closed, he lifted his sword, intending to bring it down on Taramati's head. Suddenly, flower petals began raining from the sky. As he felt the soft petal on his body, Harishchandra opened his eyes. Sage Vashishta stood before him. "Harishchandra, You have proven your worth. I am proud of you. Harishchandra was bewildered, and as he tried to understand what was going on, Taramati too was astonished. Out of the corner of his eye, Harishchandra saw Rohitshwa stir. The boy opened his eyes and sat up, almost as if from the deep sleep. By then, Vishwamitra's illusion had also reached an end, and the king of Kashi came running to the scene with his son in tow, perfectly alive and healthy. Vishwamitra appeared with Nakshatraka and addressed Harishchandra. I am proud of you. I apologize for having put you through a challenging test. But you handle every situation without resentment or anger. You are truly the most dharmic king of all. Till the world exists, and with Lord Vishwanath as a witness, you will now be known as Satya Harishchandra, and Manikarnika Ghat will become one of the most sacred ghats of the land. I return your kingdom to you, and in addition, you will also share half the punya of my good deeds. Harishchandra accepted the blessings of the sages and headed back to Ayodhya with his family. He ruled the kingdom wisely for a long time. The nickname Nakshatraka is used today for a person who follows another person around, irritating him or her. And the phrase don't follow me like Nakshatraka is often used in this context. If you go to Kashi or Varanasi today, you can see the piles of bodies awaiting their turn for cremation at Manikarnika Ghat. The ashes are then immersed in the river Ganga. The descendants of Veera Babu still retain the ownership of the ghat. And of course, Lord Vishwanath remains the eternal witness. Do you like this story? Then tell me in the comment box and subscribe our channel. Bye bye.